She lies, and she smears, and she paints decent Americans, you, as racists. She bullies voters who only want a better future. I want you to remember these 3 words. Shame on you.
Wow. That was Donald Trump, GOP presidential nominee, earlier today, preemptively responding to these attacks from his Democratic rival, Hillary Clinton. Joining us now, author of 11 New York Times bestsellers. I assume this will be number 12. In Trump We Trust, E Pluribus Awesome. Ann Coulter. What's up, Miss Coulter? How are you?
You can't even reach me.
I know. I want to get there. Well, I thought that was shame on you, a perfect way to respond.
It is. What more do you want me to say?
What do you make of every 4 years we go through this nonsense, Democrats play the race card? Every 4 years.
It's not even every 4 years. It's
every 2 years.
incessant. And particularly in this case, I was going. They had Breitbart had a book party for Trump We Trust last night.
Right.
And I was on my way there in an Uber car, and the Uber driver said, "Do you mind if I listen to the news?" And the whole thing is apparently CNN, I found out, with them all talking about Breitbart being this racist organization, and they're all racist, and they're racist. And I said, "What are you listening to?" And then told him, he was a black cab driver, or the Uber driver, and I said, "You are taking me to a party at this right, at this horrible racist," because I'm bursting out laughing at all this, and I invited him to come to the party so we could see all the scary racists there. No, it's because Breitbart put out Clinton Cash, which has been watched by more than 3 million people online. I mean, it's been acknowledged by Washington Post, New York Times as absolutely devastating because it very clearly lays out the whole pay-for-play Clinton Foundation scam, where they take money, Hillary does a favor as Secretary of State, and then, oh, weirdly, Bill Clinton gets hired to give a speech for $600,000. I mean, it's just so utterly, obviously corrupt, like everything else.
And the media's corrupt. And, you know, you actually outlined in one of your earlier books, and I remember we interviewed you about that. You know, let's play her mentor. This is her mentor, Robert, the former Klansman Byrd. This is him.
There are white I've seen a lot of white in my time. I'm going to use that word. But we just need to work together to make our country a better country.
That's her mentor.
I'd say Donald Trump's attack is much better and much more devastating, and that is the Democrats and Hillary Clinton see African Americans only as voters. They don't care about, the Democrats don't care about your lives or your jobs. Immigration and a border wall is the great unifier. Trump promises to put Americans first, to protect their neighborhoods, but most of all to bring jobs back, to end these job-killing trade deals. He is the first person to ever come along and say, maybe we should care about just emptying out the manufacturing base of America and to stop dumping low-wage workers on the country. I mean, that is the big issue he has.
We have 95 million Americans out of the labor force right now. 1 in 5 American families don't have one person in their family working. So 11 million illegals, more coming every day, competing for fewer jobs, driving down wages. Who has been disproportionately impacted? What demographic group more than any other?
Right. No,
Black Americans.
And Carol Swain, a wonderful professor at Vanderbilt, has documented this over and over again. It is African Americans who are hurt the most by our current immigration policies, which is why I'm so annoyed by the plutocrats and the rich and the elites who get their cheap nannies and chefs and chauffeurs and strut around like they're Martin Luther King. No, the compassionate policy is to be compassionate toward Americans. And nobody has talked about Americans until Donald Trump came along and didn't need the donors, so he wasn't being bossed around by campaign consultants, though it sounds as if some campaign consultant has slipped into his campaign, and I don't think he should have been hiring, Rubio's speechwriter for his interview with you, giving all these ridiculous talking points for amnesty. And to speak to that, for one thing, the mainstream media, I've criticized Trump before. I'm not some, Clinton cultist or a Cruz cultist. He's my guy, but I give him constructive criticism. And every time I do this, the media makes this huge big deal of, Coulter tiring of Donald Trump. It was a joke when I said this was going to be the shortest book tour ever. It's called a joke. But I do think, because simultaneously with his interview with you, where he said some very dumb things, oh well, he's giving these spectacular speeches in Fredericksburg, Virginia, in Tampa, Florida. They're completely the opposite. He's going back to saying, I'm going to put Americans
People
first.
misinterpreted a lot of what we discussed yesterday. What he did was survey the crowd, and then he kept reinforcing, enforce the law.
Well,
that's what he said again and again and again.
And he does keep saying he will put Americans first. If he puts Americans first, then all that nonsense someone told him to say about, and they'll pay back taxes. Okay, little pro tip, back taxes for they're not making enough money to pay taxes. Back taxes mean we give each illegal alien approximately $30,000 in earned income tax credit refunds.
All right, let's go back to U.S. politics with a guest who has gained considerable notoriety and over 1.3 million Twitter followers by speaking her mind without borders, except maybe on matters of walls and immigrations. Conservative commentator Ann Coulter joins us from New York City. And we're such a contrast up here. We're opening our doors to Syrian refugees and other Middle East refugees. The president you support is banning or pausing immigration and refugee arrivals. What do you see as the effect of these sort of twin solitudes on the relations between Trump and Trudeau in the longer term? Is there going to be a border price to be paid?
Well, you got a lot of catching up to do in Canada. I mean, Canadian immigration policy for decades has been more like what Trump is suggesting, and that is looking at immigration as any other government policy. What's good for the people who already live there? For 50 years, America has been taking the poorest of the poor, the most backward, dysfunctional cultures, and a lot of what got Trump elected was people saying, okay, that's enough. America needs a little me time now. We have our own veterans, our own elderly, our own poor people. In fact, our own immigrants who came in the last decade and the decade before that and the decade before that, which is why the Trump administration and everyone else keeps referring to it as a pause. This isn't hatred for the rest of the world. It's having a pause to take care of the people who are already here.
Okay, but what's the conservative view down there of Canada? We have, our prime minister's tweeted about us being open arms to refugees after the president's pause in immigration. Is that going to cause us trouble, do you think?
Well, looking at what happened to America for the last 50 years and what's happening in Western Europe right now, I might say it would cause some trouble, but you got about 5 decades of total open borders to very different cultures from your own before you're going to be any place where America is, because that's what we've been doing for 50 years now.
I would beg. We have had an awful lot of immigration over many decades here, Ann, but let's talk a little bit about...
Nothing like ours.
Well, we brought more Syrian refugees in last year than the United States did, so we're pretty immigration open and certainly
and for 50
boat
years,
people and...
Yeah, no, you took about 200 Hmong, we took millions. For 50 years, we've been taking more than 1 million immigrants a year, 90% from the third world. You guys got a lot of catching up to do. If I were a Canadian, I wouldn't say that was one of America's best policies. I'm not recommending you emulate it, but I'm just saying, this sudden rush under Trudeau, you're still way behind us.
I'm curious what you thought about Donald Trump today, his call to the Australia Prime Minister. There's talk about this refugee transfer agreement continuing. Republican John McCain rode to the rescue to try and calm it down after this phone hang-up. Does your president in some ways need a lesson in diplomacy when a Five Eyes ally is on the line?
Well, I'm waiting to see what the real story is on that. I keep getting one version from the media and then 12 hours later, oh, that didn't happen at all. I mean, we just got it with the Russian sanctions. So I haven't seen confirmation, maybe it's coming across the transom now, from either the Australian Prime Minister or Trump, that there was any hanging up. But as for the policy being discussed, again, Australia takes these quote, refugees, i.e. people who want to come to a first world country and live off its taxpayers. Americans, a big part of the election was saying, no, we want to take care of our own. And we're not talking about people. I mean, as I wrote in my column this week, there are a lot of misnomers in this refugee business. Among them, the idea that you know, we're taking in people who are fleeing the modern equivalent of the Holocaust. No, I mean, even in the New York Times examples of their most sympathetic cases, we had one an Iraqi with respiratory problems and diabetes who was returning from Iraq after fulfilling his duties as a provincial leader over there. They're not fleeing something. They're coming here because they get free health care, free food, free housing, which is fine. We're a generous nation. We've been more than generous, but we're about at the point of saying we gave at the office.
Okay, but you're talking to Australia, a very strong ally of the United States, a member of the Five Eyes security umbrella, and yet your president hangs up on the guy because he wants to keep an agreement going. Isn't that diplomatically toxic?
Well, for one thing, I'm not believing that he hung up yet. As I say, I suspect that is fake news. I love Australia. I love Canada. I love Britain. I still don't want to be taking more than 1,000 poor people whom we have no responsibility to. I mean, what this immigration scam always runs on is, well, for one thing, American and Canadians, big-heartedness, but particularly in America, we're supposed to treat foreigners as if they're American blacks. Well, no, we have a special relationship with African Americans in this country because of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. What did we do to the rest of the world? We don't owe them. And yet they show up with a lot of needs and a lot of grievances, and this has been going on a very long time. We just need a little break for a while. Otherwise, there's going to be no lifeboat to put people on.
Do you think this is temporary, or do you think this could be permanent in some cases?
No, I think it's temporary, though my idea of temporary, what I would like it to be, maybe a little longer than yours. But we need to assimilate the ones already here. We need to dust off the books. We need to figure out serious vetting procedures. And also, not only vetting for, is this person likely to shoot up the San Bernardino Community Center, but vetting in terms of, should we really be moving these people out of their country? I mean, you can also hurt other countries around the world by taking, you know, the people that they need to build the country back up again. So, you know, I mean, we want genuine refugees. We want to make sure it wouldn't be better to help them where they are, which we do a lot and we can keep doing. But when they insist on coming here and signing up for Social Security, when half of my party is out there saying we have to reform entitlements, i.e. raise the retirement age, cut benefits. No, how about raise American benefits and let us retire earlier and stop taking in the poor of the world?
You write in various news media. You have a column. Our prime minister just the other day publicly demanded Fox News issue a correction after it tweeted that a shooter in a Quebec City mosque was of Moroccan origin when he was a white university student. They tried twice to get this corrected. What's your reaction to what was done? Should Fox not have been a lot quicker in pulling that erroneous tweet down?
Well, I have absolutely nothing to do with Fox. I don't even follow them on Twitter, so I was unaware of that tweet. But, yeah, of course, incorrect tweets should be corrected.
Okay. Last question. The Donald Trump we've seen in the first 2 weeks, is this the Donald Trump we're going to see for the next 4 years?
Oh, I hope so. It's like Christmas every day. The only problem is, and he warned us about this, is it's getting exhausting winning so much. Just winning every day.
All right. Ann Coulter, thanks for joining us.